Good afternoon, everyone. Today I will be sharing with you some valuable insights on how to teach in the Zoom classroom. There are a few different instances where your FIGS class needs to be shifted to online learning, and it's essential to adapt our teaching techniques to ensure student engagement, participation, and effective learning outcomes. Let's explore some effective Zoom classroom techniques and strategies that will help us create a vibrant and interactive virtual learning environment. In a regular classroom, teaching benefits from an often overlooked element: environment and space. Being in a physical setting sets the tone for the classroom. Students enter with a learning mindset and are ready to engage with the material being taught. But when teaching virtually, students can physically be in different environments with different distractions around, so they're more likely to be passive learners. Additionally, the classroom space allows for a variety of seating layouts, which lend to different teaching methods and activities. Group seating can allow for collaboration and peer interaction, while individual seating is good for more focused work. Finally, in-person teaching allows for immediate feedback, nonverbal cues, and real-time interactions, which help the lesson flow and stay on time. It's important to keep these ideas in mind when adapting your lesson plan for teaching online. How do we account for these differences when we translate our classroom to the virtual space? The following presentation will be a guide to facilitating common types of activities and discussions virtually by making the best use of the online tools available to us. This video will be split into 4 sections based on the general types of activities you may already have in your lesson plans. Those are small group activities, which require you to split the class into groups of 2 to 5, brainstorming activities, individual participation, either anonymous or not, and finally, full class discussions. Each section will highlight a few tech tools that are particularly useful in conducting activities of that type, and will briefly describe some examples of how it may be modified to fit specific activities that we talked about in PI Ed. We'll begin by discussing what is probably the most common type of activity you will facilitate: small group discussions. Organizing small group activities over Zoom relies heavily on the breakout rooms function. I'm sure you've all used breakout rooms as students in your own courses, but in the following video from the 2020 Summer Institute session, you'll be able to see how to set up and run breakout rooms from the instructor point of view.
Okay, so one of the things with Zoom that will be probably your best friend during all of this are the breakout rooms. So anything that you might do in relation to activities where you want students to get together in small groups, or you want to do like a think share, you want them to do some individual reflection, and then to break off maybe into pairs or small groups into breakout rooms and then come back. You're going to be able to use these breakout room functions. So in Zoom, on the control panel that I'm looking at as an instructor, which you can't see now, but you'll be able to go back later and you should have seen in the video, there's the opportunity to put people into breakout rooms through the more function. You can do this automatically or manually, and it tells you, like right now, if I assign you to 5 different rooms, that's going to put 4 to 5 participants in a room. Some of the things to note with the breakout room spaces that are a little tricky is that you can broadcast a message to all of the rooms when students are in there, but students can't respond to those messages. So again, there's a broadcast function that the instructor can send a message to all the students, like if you wanted to add a question on for them to respond to, if you wanted to tell them you have 60 seconds until I'm going to call you back in, whatever it is. But students can't respond, and eventually that goes away. So that can be a little tricky. It doesn't stay there. The other thing to note is that when students are in the breakout room, they can ask for help. There's a way for the students to call for the instructor. So if you think about it, are you guys still able to see me? Elena, can you see me still? Okay. So when you think about it, if you were in a typical in-person class, if you broke students up into in groups to do something and they had a question, they would raise their hand and you would go over and answer the question. The nice thing about the breakout space is if they have a question, they can call you into their room. So they just do this. If they call you, it'll pop up on your screen saying that they called you, and then you'll go in there, which is pretty cool. The other thing is to note is you can go in and out of breakout rooms at any time. So as students are in there, you can join into a room, leave the room, join into another room. So it still, provides this sense of instructors sort of going and checking in on students and seeing how they're, doing, answering any questions they have, so you can go through and visit. And I would encourage you to do that. The chat function does not work in the breakout room. It'll work for the students in the breakout rooms if they want to chat with each other. But if you're trying to send a message or the students are trying to talk with you, the chat function does not work. So that's something to know. One of the things that I would encourage you all to do is, if your students are going into a breakout room and you're giving them something to do or questions to answer or an assignment, something to reflect on while they're there, I think the best thing to do is put it into a Google Doc, whether it's in an Excel sheet, a Microsoft Word sheet, and give them the link in the chat before they go into that room so they can open it. And they'll still be able to see the chat to copy and paste that as well. But that's sort of the best way to give them links, is to do that before and do it through a Google Doc, which we'll show you some of that in just a minute. We're going to talk in a few minutes about the whiteboard function, which is on Zoom. The one thing to note about the whiteboard is the whiteboard does not save automatically for students in breakout rooms. They can save it, but they'll have to save it right before they leave the room. So one thing to be cautious about with the whiteboard feature is, if you're using it in breakout rooms, that you must tell students to save their work so they have that to come back. And in that case, in some ways, I think the Google Doc might be a better option, because you can actually see in live time what's happening in the rooms and what they're doing based on the document that they have open. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put you into breakout rooms automatically, so you can see how that looks on the video. When I get in there, or when you all get in there, let's see here. Let me pick on someone different. Maggie, when you're in the room, can you look for the function that tries to call me into that room when I put you into the breakout room?
Actually, you did it accidentally yesterday in orientation.
Oh, good. So you know exactly what you're looking for.
Find it again.
Okay, perfect. Well, hopefully it'll work, and I'm hoping it'll also record it, so that if you all go back and see it, you'll be able to see what it looks like from the instructor's perspective. So I'm going to put you into the I'm going to put you into breakout room automatically right now. Maggie will call me in. I'll go into her group, and then I'll send you a couple messages so you can see what those broadcast messages look like. And once you're in there, you're welcome to unmute and talk to each other. I mean, that'd be great. Introduce yourselves. We don't have a lot of time to do that tonight for those of you that don't know each other. But let me throw you into those breakout rooms right now. Not literally throw you in, but let me place you gently into those breakout rooms, and then I'll see you back here in just a few minutes. So as you can see here, everybody's going in, and the Sant hasn't gone in and connected quite yet. So his is showing not joined, but in a few minutes, it should show that he's joined. Now you can see here, Maggie Kelly in breakout room 4 has asked for help. So I'm going to join Maggie Kelly's breakout room, and it's taking me in there now. And yay, it worked. All right, awesome. So I think that this is still recording. So as you can see, I'm now in the breakout room. I can put it into gallery view if I want to see everybody at once. And then right down here, there's a place where I can actually leave the room. So I'm going to click to leave the room, and I'll call you guys back in just a minute, okay? Bye. And just leave breakout room. You don't want to leave everything. Returning to the main session. Okay, so I'm back, and then if I want to, whoops, I need to unmute myself. If I want to send a message to the breakout rooms, I can pull up breakout rooms again and say broadcast message to all, and I'll say, hi everyone, pulling you back into the, actually I'll just say hi everyone, because then I think when I close the rooms, it will give them a message. So now I'm going to close the rooms, and then they get another message. All participants have been given 60 seconds to leave their breakout room. So they're seeing that now, and it should pull everybody back in. Yay, people are starting to come back in. All right, let me see how many we have. It looks like you can see in the breakout room here, it looks like there's still one group. You guys can't see this, but I'm saying this for the video, that has not come back yet, so they should be back any minute. Actually, 2 rooms that haven't come back. And it says down at the bottom here, all breakout rooms will close in 5 seconds. So if they don't come back, everybody will come back automatically. All right, so it looks like we have everybody back. So it worked out where Maggie was able to call me in, so thanks, Maggie. And that'll be on the video so you can see what that looks like. You all should have received, I think, 2 messages when you were in the breakout room. One's I just said, hi, everyone. And then I hope that there was another message that gave you a warning that the breakout rooms are closing in 60 seconds. Is that thumbs up if that's the case? Perfect. So that's what will happen there. Elena, you asked a question that I'll answer. Actually, I'll answer in just a minute. But okay, so let me stop the video there. Basically, that's pretty much the basics on the breakout room. You can also, I'm just gonna, for purposes of this, I'm not gonna actually put you into a breakout room, but you could go and open all rooms again, the group save, or if you want, you could move people. Like I could move Ash to breakout room 4, and Shreya, or Kayla, I could exchange with Michelle Fan. So you can really play around with this, or you could add a room, or you could just recreate in general. And then if I wanted to go to manual and recreate all rooms, then it gives me the option to choose who I want to put in those rooms. So I'm doing that here. And then you have the option too, if you want to rename a breakout room, like if one person was talking about topic A, you can put that here so that they know that. But I'm going to stop this now since I've showed you a little bit about the breakout rooms. And hopefully that will be helpful.
Here are a few other details to consider when using breakout rooms in your classes. In a regular classroom, the instructor is able to keep students on task and on time by calling out reminders for the time or walking around the room to see how far along groups are. Over Zoom, as Lynn mentioned in the video, the broadcast function can be used instead to give time reminders like 5 minutes remaining or 1 minute remaining to students in the breakout rooms. However, the broadcasted message doesn't linger for long, and it can be quite small on the screen, so if a student isn't paying attention while conversing with their group mates, or if they're working on a second screen, they may miss your message. And if a group loses track of time, they may end up having to return back to the main room with nothing to present. So a good alternative to using the broadcast feature is to task one student per breakout room to be the timekeeper and keep everyone focused on the task. You can assign this by something arbitrary, like the person whose first letter of their name comes first in the alphabet, or just have the group decide on their own who's going to be the timekeeper. Along with informing students of the set time that they'll be spending in breakout rooms, it's also helpful to give both spoken and written instructions for the activity they'll be completing in their breakout rooms. If they miss a certain detail while you speak, they'll then have instructions to look back on while in their groups. This will streamline your lesson a little and help your activity stay on time, since it'll eliminate some of the clarification questions students will have about what to do. Having to jump between breakout rooms to answer those questions can be time-consuming, and groups that end up having to wait while you're addressing another breakout room will then end up starting to work later and may not have enough time to finish. The easiest way to share the written instructions is to make a worksheet or a list of discussion questions in Google Docs and upload it to Canvas, or send a link in the Zoom chat before sending them out to breakout rooms. A final suggestion is to assign an end product for students to produce while in the breakout rooms. This can be a poster or a pamphlet, or just having them jot down their answers to discussion questions on a shared Google Doc, or making a PPT slide with their notes. Like I mentioned earlier, in a regular classroom, the instructor is able to keep walking around the room and checking in on each group periodically to see if they're staying on task. But when you're in the breakout rooms, this becomes nearly impossible. And so having students create a tangible record of their group work obliges them to actually do the activity, and it gives them something to share out when they return to the main room. The use of breakout rooms may differ based on the particular small group activity that you're facilitating. Here are a few examples of how certain menu items that we've discussed during PIED can be set up to be conducted virtually. For a Think, Pair, Share activity, send students into breakout rooms of 2. For a case studies activity, have your cases pre-written in a Google Doc that you upload to Canvas. Assign each breakout room to a case and have them jot down their diagnosis or solution right onto the doc itself. When the class returns to the main room, have the groups share out their answers and find commonalities between them. For a jigsaw activity, you'll need to do 2 rounds of breakout rooms. For the first round, each room will be assigned to one topic to learn about. Provide them with an article, video, or website, and a set of questions to guide them through becoming content experts on that topic. After some time, pull everyone back into the main room. Then for your next round of breakout rooms, manually switch students into different groups such that each breakout room has at least one student from each topic represented. In these new groups, students will then share out what they learned about their topic and work through a few discussion questions together. The next style of activity we'll be focusing on is brainstorming activities. These refer to exercises where students will be visually organizing their thoughts on a newly introduced topic. So concept maps, gallery walks, or constructing a food pyramid, these are all examples of brainstorming activities. One nice feature on Zoom that can be applicable to any brainstorming activity is the whiteboard and annotation features. In the following video, Lynn will show you how to access these 2 functions and where they might be used.
Okay, I'm recording now, so I'm going to share my screen. And when you're in here, you can go to pretty much whatever you want to go to. I'm going to go to the whiteboard here, so that's up. So, Alina, can you see the whiteboard? Perfect, awesome. So with the whiteboard is a great tool, but it's also somewhat limited in what it can do. So I think for simple sorts of activities, it's a really nice option. What you'll want to do with the whiteboard feature is your students are going to want to use what's called the annotate function. So all of you should be able to go up to the top of your computers and hover up there, and something should drop down that says View Options, and then on that drop-down bar, you should be able to select Annotate. Does everybody see that? And that's going to be one of the basic instructions that you'll give to your students when they're doing Annotate. Once you get in there, you can play, you guys can start playing if you want. Like, you can do the text boxes, you can do the stamps, you can make things different colors. So there's a lot of different things that you can do in this particular whiteboard. You can, stamp your name. Actually, not stamp your name, it's the spotlight, and they'll put your name down. I'm RU Career Exploration tonight. But there's a lot of different things that you can do in here. But this could serve as a basic, let's see. I don't think I can annotate from my computer. Ashika and Michelle. Okay, that's very strange. I don't know why that would be. I've never had. What we'll do is at the end, for folks that are having issues with Annotate, we'll stay on and I'll have you all share your screens to see if we can figure it out together. Oh, Maggie's saying some people in orientation can't either. Sometimes you have to update Zoom. Oh, Ashika says, actually, I think I figured it out. Ashika, can you unmute yourself and tell us what you might have learned?
Sorry, it took me a second to find the button.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't seeing the view options button before, so I was looking at my view toolbar on the top, so I just didn't know where to look.
Okay.
But I think you might have to update Zoom. I've definitely heard that before.
Okay. So that might be a really good thing to share with your students the first day, that there's probably some sort of Zoom update. So if they can't do it, to have them update Zoom, because I haven't had that experience before, so that's new to me, so that's important to know. One other cool thing with the mute function, and you probably learned this before too, is you don't always have to just unmute yourself. So Natalie, if you just hold down your space bar like a walkie-talkie and just hold it down, can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. And then once you let up, you're muted again. But for easy in and out of talking, it's a really nice feature if your students are muted, which you'll probably want them muted for many parts of the class outside of breakout rooms just for background noise issues. But then they can just hold down the space bar the entire time they're talking and then lift back up, which is a pretty cool tool. All right. So with the annotate board, it's a cool feature. You can do some different things. You could, in some ways, if you wanted to, if you were going to draw, I'm just going to show you a sample here. You could do like a concept map, and you could, I mean, this looks terrible because it's, there's a million things here right now, but you could like make things and then draw a line. Now this is sort of a very clunky, it takes a while to do it. I'm going to show you a better tool later. But you could also have them brainstorm different things in groups simply with the whiteboard. The challenges with the whiteboard again is the saving. Oh, I love the face that someone drew. That's very, very, very good, very artistic. But oh my gosh, lots of stuff being drawn. Who's drawing that? Those are really good. But the challenge with the whiteboard is that it doesn't get any bigger than you see here. So in some of these other tools I'm going to show you tonight, when you're doing concept mapping, the concept maps continue to go out. Does that make sense? So the screen just expands. So that's kind of cool, and that's one of the challenges of the whiteboard. I'm going to close out the whiteboard for a second. You can all see me now, right? The other thing I'm going to do that's sort of cool is with the annotate feature, you can annotate on anything. So with that said, one example I'm going to show you here, and you could think of a million different ways to do this in some of your own activities that you're doing. But one of the things that I'm going to show you here is I'm going to pull up, let's see. Can you still, you can't see my screen anymore, right? No, okay, let me do this. Keeps going off of share screen. Okay. You can see it now though, right? Hope shared with us. One of the things that you could do, and this is just a very simple example, but if you were talking about wellness and you wanted to do sort of a check-in with your students on the areas of wellness that they feel like they're really doing well at that point, and then a couple of areas that are more challenging for them, what you could ask them to do, and I'm going to ask you all to do this right now, is to go to that annotate bar again, which you'll be able to, I don't know why I can't find it all of a sudden. Where's my annotate bar? I don't know what happened to it. But you'll be able to go to your annotate bar, and then under the stamps, what you could ask them to do is put 2 hearts by or on top of or next to areas that they feel like they're doing really well in, and then maybe 2 question marks in areas that they're questioning, that they need to do more focus on. Can folks try to do that with the annotate function? So yeah, you can see that. So again, just a very, very simple sort of thing, but we're starting with more of the simple options. But basically, students can annotate on anything that you pull up. Any screen that comes up, they can annotate on that. So you might think of different ways to do this in your own classes. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here for a minute. All right. And then finally, some of the other things, if you're thinking about interesting ways that you want your students to work together, whether that be a gallery walk or concept mapping or creating timelines, the other really unique thing that you can do, or not unique thing, is put them into breakout rooms, for instance. Give them a Google Doc link. I'm going to share my screen again for a second. So if we go in here, And this is the Google Doc link. So what, if I would have been smart, I would have sent this to you before. So I'm gonna put the link into the chat. So if you're going into a breakout room and say you were gonna ask your students to do some sort of a gallery walk and they were going to focus on different areas of physical wellness, emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, whatever you wanted to do, you could give them this Google Doc link and you could say, Group A, you're going to fill everything. And feel free to type in here if you want just to test it out. But Group A, you're going to put your answers in this top row. Group B is going to do here, and et cetera, et cetera. Or you could also use the tabs at the bottom to assign different groups to different tabs, however you may want to do that. And again, when you're breaking them off into the breakout room spaces, you can name the groups whatever you want to name them so they can see that and it would match the Google Doc. The other thing that you could always do is give each of the groups different Google Doc links to have different sheets that they're actually working on. Does that make sense? So again, I think the Google Docs and the sharing of these will probably come in very handy in a lot of different ways, whether you use it in the full class, but also it'll be very helpful in your breakout room spaces. All right, I'm gonna stop the recorder.
If you specifically are going to do concept maps, you can use the online website Padlet, as the next video will show you.
Is what Padlet calls a canvas. But it actually looks a lot like what we would identify as a concept map sort of thing. So let me open it and I'll give you the link. Yes. Here it is. So I'll put the link in the chat and you can all go to it and play around with it. So this is a concept map of sorts. And what we did here was there is a welcome video from President Holloway. And then you could actually show the video right from Padlet. You could incorporate the sound as it was talked about in the Zoom LinkedIn Learning session. And then you can have people make comments about what they saw. Or you could post an article here and have them make comments. So I think this was Susan. I love the symbolism in this video too, from the image of him walking past the portraits of past presidents, all white, to the importance of the photographs intact, to the bag they were packed in, which seems to be a nod to his presidency starting at the end of Pride Month. So a lot of really cool things. And then you can also comment on someone else's post. If you wanted to do that, so you could almost have it be like this ongoing conversation. You can heart someone, you can draw lines. All you have to do to add a post is to double click with the pink, and then you can write something. I would encourage your students as they're doing it, so you know who it's coming from, to put their names in the title, and then add whatever they want to add, so you know who it's coming from. But as an instructor, you can delete anything as well. Did anyone add anything here? A few people try just to play around. Just to make sure you get it to work. You can also right click on something. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. And you can connect to post. So you would just say where you wanted to connect it to, and then it would draw a line. So it's sort of concept mapping in there, which is pretty cool. So Gina, I see that you posted. Did that seem pretty simple? All right. So that is that part of Padlet. Stop my video.
Gallery walks are also easy to facilitate on Padlet, but using a different format option.
Padlet option.
they
They
call
call
this
this
a
a
shelf.
shelf.
It's sort of a
It's sort of a
list or a
list or a
chart of
chart of
things. There's
things.
actually
There's
some
actually
really
some really
cool
cool
articles here and
ideas
ideas
if you want to go back
look at
and
some
look
of
at
them
some
for
of
your
them
own
for your own
purposes.
purposes.
But you could
But you
set
could
this up
set this
in
up
any
in
different
any
way
with
with
articles, video
video
attachments,
attachments,
teaching tools. We
tools. We
just have
just have
different
different
things that
things that
are
are
the
the
headings
headings
there, or you
there, or
can
you can
add
add
columns.
columns.
And
And
all you
all you
have to
have to
do to
do to
add
add
anything for
anything
your
for your
students
students
is
is
to
to
um,
um,
push the plus sign, and then you could say article on, I can't spell, sorry, article on whatever. And then, you know, if they wanted them to brainstorm some different things on that, and then you could leave that there. Can other people just try to add, a couple people try to add there? You could make these columns anything, and again, this could be used for any of the gallery walks. You can have them heart things. You can have this be something, if you wanted to use this in like a ink shedding exercise where students are commenting on something someone else says, you could use it from that perspective. So there's a variety of ways to use this, but it's nice because you can, in addition to just comments, post videos, articles, those sorts of things. So students can have a lot of fun with that as well. All right, I'm going to close out.
If you plan on making a Padlet presentation, make sure to sign in using your school account and share the link to your Padlet with your students in the Zoom's chat so they can access it. Padlet also has many other formats and features that were not mentioned in this presentation, like the timeline or blog post themes. So take a few minutes to explore the other options on Padlet, since there may be a format that's better suited for a particular activity in your lesson. If you don't like the Padlet setup or aesthetics, there are other online tools that you can use for building concept maps, like MindMeister or Mural.co. Jamboard is a Google application, and it's basically their version of the digital whiteboard. So if you don't like the Zoom whiteboard, an annotation feature, and Lynn mentioned a couple drawbacks to it, Jamboard is another option. As I mentioned in the previous section, when facilitating activities online, it's beneficial to assign tasks that make sure that students are actually processing the material. For a brainstorming activity, one way to do so is to have students comment on at least one other post on the gallery wall, or make an addition to the concept map. So that way you know that they're actually reading each other's ideas and collaborating. The next section will focus on individual or anonymous reflection activities. One really nice website you can use to integrate student engagement into any presentations you do is Mentimeter. So in a regular classroom setting, if you were to have a lecture portion to introduce your topical content, you can make it interactive by asking questions in between, having students raise their hand to show if they agree or disagree, just little things like that. So Mentimeter is a platform where you can create presentations, and it also has different features that you can use to get your students' input while you're presenting. So it has a live polling option, a word cloud option where you can get a quick snapshot of your students' thoughts and feelings about a particular topic. It has a quiz option, so you can do a little check-in to see if they understood the content. A Q&A feature where they can submit questions, and then a feature where you can ask open-ended questions and get long-form reflections of what they're thinking and feeling about what you just taught. So all of these features allow students to participate anonymously and non-verbally. So that's a good way to get students engaged who aren't as comfortable unmuting and responding to a question in class discussions. Zoom also has a polling function as well as the yes or no or emoji reaction. So those are other alternatives for incorporating nonverbal engagement into your lesson. Here are some other virtual adaptations of activities we've discussed during PIN. So if you want to do a snowball activity, you can use the Padlet stream format where students can post anonymously. And for the first round, have students each make a post responding to a particular question. Then they'll respond to another person's post. And then for the next round, they can then comment on someone else's comment. And if you continue like this, each post will eventually sort of look like a Reddit thread. If you want to do an exit poll to wrap up the class, you can create a Qualtrics survey. Ask them general questions about what they learned or if they have any outstanding questions that weren't addressed. And at the start of the next lesson, you could then recap any trends you observed or answer any important questions that came up. Finally, teaching virtually doesn't mean everything has to be done with an online application. Some individual reflections are personal and they don't need to be read by classmates or the instructor. So in that case, you can always have your students pull out a piece of paper and pencil and do a free write for a certain amount of time. The final activity type that we will be discussing is full class discussions. There are various reasons why students may not be as forthcoming when speaking in a virtual setting compared to when they're in an in-person class. So to encourage equal participation from all members of your class, it's helpful to vary your facilitation style. One method to ensure different voices are being heard during each discussion is to use the cold call method. So you can have a random name wheel prepared before class, and if there's a lull in the conversation where no one is speaking up, you can spin the wheel to randomly call on the student. Or you can use it to choose who takes their turn next during activity or to share the response. You can also use the popcorn method, where the instructor chooses the first student to talk, maybe by using the name wheel, and then each student chooses the next student to talk after they're done sharing. Using a Jeopardy board can also be a fun way to lead a class discussion. You can categorize your discussion questions based on topic and difficulty level, and have your students choose which way the discussion will go by choosing a particular piece on the Jeopardy board. So students will likely be more interested and willing to talk if the conversation is centered on what they want to talk about. So it's a really fun way to facilitate an interesting conversation. Another useful method is the fishbowl discussion. This is particularly applicable if you consistently notice the same few people dominating every discussion. So divide the class into two groups and have one half participate in the discussion while the other half can only contribute through comments in the chat, and then have the group switch roles for the next question or the next discussion. So in this presentation, we talked a little bit about different tech tools and online websites you can use to adapt or translate activities you already have in your lesson plan to teach them virtually in the event that your class has to be moved online. There are many other resources and strategies that we haven't covered that you can find on the internet, or if you want, you can get some inspiration from the 2020 PI cohort lesson plans that are available to you. And with that, thank you for listening and good luck teaching in the upcoming semester.